what I want to do is very briefly share with you 4 memories of my life that helped me understand what socialism is, or communism is. Okay? First of all, I want to thank God for this opportunity, for many different reasons. And it brings back one of my clearest memories of Cuba, which was sitting in one of those big, beautiful Havana churches, and the church was almost empty. My grandmother, myself, 2 or 3 more people, the priest doing mass. People were afraid to worship. People were afraid to go to church because they would put mobs outside to insult you when you came in or when you walked out. And you would be discriminated if you believed in God, persecuted. Rosa Maria's family knows that experience very well. And everywhere communism and socialism have come to, the first freedom they strike at is religious freedom. Why are they knocking down the statues of Jesus? Because they've done it everywhere they've gone. Whether it's a synagogue, a temple, a church, that's their target. St. Augustine said that the source of all other freedoms was religious freedom. The right to believe or not to believe, to have faith or not to have faith, that's fundamental. And that's one of the first things communism in Cuba tried to eradicate. They tried to wipe out Christianity in Cuba. For this very powerful reason, and for many others, free Cubans, Cuban Americans, have been at the forefront of the struggle against communism in Cuba and around the world. Thousands of Cubans have died in that struggle. Thousands have been imprisoned. Many are still in prison today. It's been a very long struggle, and this community has been visited many times by different leaders who made a lot of promises. Few of those promises, the most glaring being the Bay of Pigs, have been kept. And that's why, one of the reasons why I thank God for being here is that I wanted the opportunity to thank you. Because you came through. I was there when they gave you the Bay of Pigs award. I was one of the speakers at that day. I was honored to do so. That's right. And what you said that day, what you've been working on ever since, closely with Mario, who's untiring, relentless in the struggle for Cuban freedom, you've come through. And you know, Cubans have been without a homeland for so long. We've been in this struggle for so long that one of the things we cherish is loyalty and gratitude. And we are grateful to you. And we're good friends to have. Because once someone has served the cause of freedom in Cuba and behaved like you have, we will be loyal to you forever. Title III, Title IV have empowered Cubans legally to fight for justice. The strategic sanctions aimed at the military and the intelligence and security sectors have weakened them. That's why we've seen in the past months, in the past few weeks, protests against this regime in Santa Clara, in Moa, in Holguín, in key cities in Cuba. Every time Cubans see that the state is weakened and they have a chance to fight. They go out and they struggle. That's why it's especially important at this point in time that we have a strong Radio Martí, a strong TV Martí, a strong Radio República, all these stations which are transmitting uncensored, accurate, objective information to Cubans. Cuba is the base for the communist occupation of Venezuela and Nicaragua. If Cubans are really supported, like you're doing now, to free Cuba, the entire hemisphere will breathe better, including the United States. The second memory I want to share with you is that right before we left Cuba, my parents spent 5 years trying to get out of Cuba. My father, for the crime of being an electrical engineer, they didn't want him to go. So he had to go to a work camp, etc., etc. A few days before leaving, my father took me to different places in Havana to show me Havana before we left. Because he said, you know, we may never come here again. And he never returned. He never saw his city again. And Havana was a beautiful city. It's been destroyed now by communism. And it's a beautiful city because between 1902 and 1959, in less than 60 years, Cubans took that island from being devastated by genocide and Spanish occupation to being one of the leading Latin American countries with a thriving economy. Just to give you an example, which nobody ever discusses, before 1959, Cuba fed itself and exported food to the entire hemisphere. Cuba today cannot feed itself without US donations of food. So, we have lived firsthand what you are struggling against. Those many in media and in Hollywood who spread lies about socialism, lies about communism, lies about what happened in Cuba. People are naive about socialism. They're naive about communism. Che Guevara himself said that the goal of communism and socialism was to destroy the individual, to destroy individualism. That's the engine of freedom.